Hi, welcome back to the Eagle Insight podcast. When companies fail to deliver on their promises or meet their standards, there's usually always one root cause. In fact, an HBR study showed that the most common leadership shortcoming is this one thing. And another study suggests that 2/3 of leaders fail to adequately hold people accountable. This leadership failure is across all demographics, across all locations, and all levels of leadership. And it's costing businesses billions of dollars. Now, the costs include employees shirking their duties, wear and tear on other team members who are carrying the burden for people who are underperforming, poor productivity, poor outcomes, costs to customers and partners. Not only people accountable creates this culture of mediocrity, and a lack of accountability undermines the credibility of the leader. The problem's gotten worse over the past few decades because of this idea of fear from leaders. The cancel culture forces leaders to avoid conflict, and instead they focus on preventing the possibility of offending anyone. But the dark side of this everyone just get along thing is that many people aren't held accountable and they fail to meet standards. Typically there's 3 leader mindsets that cause that shortcoming. The first is that the need for some leaders to be liked. It's a trap, this need to be liked. We want to be a popular leader, but that's not your job. You're not there to be liked. You're not hired as a leader for a popularity contest. You're there to get a job done. You're there to accomplish a mission. So that leader mindset, the need to be liked, is a trap that's keeping people from holding their troops accountable. Second is a conflict-averse attitude towards personal interactions. It's part of our culture, particularly in America, where we don't like to have this conflict. What it comes down to, when holding people accountable to standards, our inability to enforce those standards is a lack of courage. If you are clear about what the standards are and they're not meeting them, they should be told. Third, leaders lack kind of the skill and willingness to provide candid and caring feedback. There's hope for leaders who want to see their company thrive and want their employees to meet standards. Establishing a culture of accountability helps leaders to enforce standards with less effort, but it starts with the leader. And you have to have the courage to provide employees with caring and candid feedback consistently. The first thing is that feedback is a leadership task. Every leader's responsibility to take care of your team. And when leaders fail to hold others accountable, they put their own teammates at risk. Accountability feedback helps you develop your team and helps you enforce standards and set people up for success. So I've got 5 leadership secrets that leaders can move past that awkward stage of providing feedback. The first is you have to avoid what I call malignant empathy. That's when you care so much about somebody's feelings and you care more about not offending them than you do about their learning and growing. So if you have somebody that's in a company and consistently screw up, but you just, but Mary's so nice and I really don't want to offend her. So you're going to let her continue to do subpar work. And when that happens, she is being considered by others as not a great performer. The other leaders in the company look at Mary as not a great performer. So we don't want to offend her, but we're going to let her wallow around in mediocrity. And the next time it comes up for a promotion or a raise, we're like, if I correct her all the time, she's just not going to like it. You can't fall into that trap, and you can't. If you do care about Mary, it's not about her feelings in the moment, it's about her feelings about herself as a performer. And as she learns and grows and gets more confidence as an individual contributor, she becomes more valuable to the team. She's able to carry a heavier load. She's able to contribute at a greater level. And oh, by the way, if you helped her get there, she is going to trust you more. Don't fall into the trap of caring about feelings at the expense of their growth. The feelings, by the way, when you confront somebody in an accountability situation, the feelings are fleeting. That uncomfortable moment for both of you only lasts 15, 20 seconds. And then we get into the meat of it, right? We get into the conversation about, here's the standard, you knew the standard, why aren't we meeting this? That is, you can unpack that then. You get to have a conversation about the reason you're not meeting the standard. Did you not know the standard? Is it a training issue? Did you not have the resources? Or is it an indifference issue? Is it a compliance issue? You just don't feel like it. Those are 2 different categories of non-compliance, and they come with 2 very different solution sets. Isn't it great if you know whether or not somebody is not meeting a standard because they don't know or they don't care? Because those are different things. The second thing we need to work on is setting clear standards. We want to hold people accountable to a standard, but if we are unclear about what those standards are, we have no leg to stand on when we want to hold somebody accountable. We want to make sure that it is crystal clear what right looks like. By the way, helps if people understand understand the why behind those requirements. If we tell people this is how we do it and here's why, they are more likely to comply with it. Now, we don't want to have this zero defect environment. That's a horrible culture where people walk around in fear for their job. But we do want everybody to understand what right looks like and to achieve to get those. Go back to step one of fighting the feedback when somebody doesn't meet the standard. But we can only hold them accountable to that if we're crystal clear about what those standards are. The third thing you want to know is you should start feedback conversations with why you care. Oh, I've heard that so many times. Well, why do you care about that? I want to start a conversation with why I care about them and about the standards and about the company. It could be an uncomfortable conversation. I like to start conversations off when I sit somebody down and this might be a little uncomfortable for both of us. I usually set them on their heels for a second to say, but we are professionals and we care deeply about you and your participation in this company and the contributions that you could be making if you were meeting the standard. That's an uncomfortable thing to say to another person, partly because our culture says it is, but partly because we do care and we know we're hurting them. But the hurt for their feelings, go back to step one, the hurt to their feelings is temporary if it's a learning environment, if it's a learning conversation, if they come out of it better, they come out of it as a better employee, they come out as a better contributor, and they're willing to give you more because you're helping them learn and grow. You're going to unlock that discretionary effort that we're after. They get to decide how much they're going to give, and if you let them know what the standards are and that you care about them, you care about the standards, you give them the reason why we care about the standards, and we care about the company. When they are on board with all of that, that's when you start to see people really grow into their positions and really give you their all. The fourth thing you want to look out for is planning out your conversation in advance. You got to know what you're going to say. You can't just walk in and say, you know what, you've been screwing up. And they go, really? Give me an example. And you well, you are. And maybe they'll have one or two things. And they tend to be emotionally charged. And they tend to be one-way conversations. And it delivers the message, but when you put people in a emotionally charged situation where you're being critical of them and you didn't plan out how this conversation was going to unfold, you did not anticipate their response. And typically when people get backed into a corner, they have what we call lizard brain. Lizard only wants one of two things. Am I fighting or am I flying away, right? Fight or flight. And when employees are put on a spot in an emotionally charged criticism, they typically go to lizard brain and all they want to do is get out of that situation. They may say or do anything to make that uncomfortable feeling and that pain stop. It is unfair of us as leaders to grab somebody, throw them in an office and start grilling them because they've screwed up. And we put them in that situation where they are going to say anything to get out of it. This is what, I just saw you do it and now you're lying about it. Yeah, they're technically being dishonest about it, but the reason they are is because their fight or flight instincts have kicked in and you caused it with your emotional outburst. But if you plan your feedback conversation in an appropriate place, an appropriate time, you don't criticize in public, you take them aside to make corrections. You praise in public, you criticize in private. It's a great rule to remember. It's one of those things when you find yourself in that situation where you're about to really criticize somebody, it's okay to make an on-the-spot correction, but let's not make it about person. If it's a coaching moment, be a coach. Don't be a boss, don't be a drill sergeant. Be a coach and help people understand what it is that they're doing to not meet that standard. And when you plan out your conversation for a real feedback moment, make notes about the specific performance or behavior that you want to talk about. You want to avoid accusations and exaggerations or judgment or vague references. You always do this. Get rid of all personal attacks. Don't be condescending and don't criticize people over things that they have no control over. Now, the things you do want to do when you're planning this out, make sure you fully understand the situation. Don't jump to conclusions. Don't believe the first report you get. First report's always wrong, or at least it's incomplete. You do want to make sure you're providing specific information that helps the employee improve. You want to focus on results. You want to discuss the specific problem areas, and by all means, be calm and unthreatening, and then save some room for feedback. Let them talk about what they're going to do with that feedback and how they're going to implement. They may also want to explain the circumstances and why things weren't exactly the way you thought they were, and you have to be open to that. But it's not going to happen if you're in an emotional outburst and that's how you're doing accountability feedback. You're going to lose that. Not that you're going to lose the conversation. It's not a competition. What you're going to do is lose the opportunity for them to learn and grow. Finally, speak with candor. Speak with candor and care. If you are speaking with candor without care, then you're probably bullying. the outcome you want from that conversation is improved performance. Keep that in mind. A lot of times bosses want to just come in and hammer people because it makes them feel big. I don't know. It doesn't lead to growth. What it might lead to is a reduction in mistakes. I don't want to be yelled at, so I'm not going to make that mistake again. But that doesn't incentivize risk-taking. It doesn't incentivize initiative. What it does is establish a culture of fear. And when people are fearful, they do the bare minimum. They do just what they're told and nothing more. Now, if you're in an environment where that's exactly what you want, fine, but you're probably going to have a high turnover rate and you're not going to have a lot of internal promotions from people who are learning and growing. So be candid with that feedback without being uncaring. Don't beat around the bush. If you're uncomfortable, start the conversation with, this is going to be uncomfortable, but I care enough about you and this company to have this conversation. That typically breaks the ice pretty well and lets both of you know what's about to happen. Now get straight to the point. Sometimes you hear about this, let's sandwich this, let's tell them something good, then let's do the criticism, and then let's finish off with something good. In my experience, that's a horrible idea. It works really well with 8-year-olds playing soccer, but it doesn't work really well in a business situation. It doesn't work well for professionals. Candidness is so underrated. When they start to hear, oh, I'm good, oh, there's something I can work on, oh, but I'm good, and they'll walk out of there and think they're okay. They're not if they're not meeting the standard. They need to be able to process that this is about me getting better. Now, keeping in mind what it is that you want to accomplish on it. You want just mere compliance? Okay, be mean. You want the employee to quit? Yep, mean will get you there too. But if you want to help that employee become the most engaged employee on the team, capable and willing to bring his or her best every day, your demeanor and your words and a clear message will determine that outcome. So that's the secrets of the accountability conversation. And you got to bring your best to this conversation. It takes practice and it takes deliberate approach. Like gaining confidence and applying these 5 secrets will help leaders overcome their fear of providing candid feedback. They'll help you connect with your team. They're going to help your team grow and establish that culture of accountability that helps teams and organizations thrive. Learning how to provide that accountability, it can be difficult. And I have programs that help leaders go through that process, learn it, role play it, and get better at providing caring and candid feedback. So thanks for listening. I love this topic. I think that it's one of the most important. You heard 2/3 of leaders struggle with this. I myself have been through several feedback moments where somebody says, you didn't hold that person accountable and it hurt the team. And I think it's the largest criticism that I've received from my peers or from 360 evaluations where somebody said, if you had done this sooner, it would have been better for the whole team. And I had to own that. And that's why this is so near and dear to my heart. Accountability, establishing accountability culture. Happy to talk about that. Leave some notes or get in touch with me. You can book a leadership breakthrough call with me. And you can click a button to contact us here at 5 Eagles. We'd be happy to have a great discovery call with you. And we can help you identify the things that you need to work on to move forward. Thanks for listening.